Awesome. All right. How friends and influence people, friendship seminar, day 3. Super excited. So celestial advice. This is like super, super cool. And so remember the beginning of last season, right? Starlight was like this evil character, just like trying to take over the whole town and make everyone do what she wanted to do. And so like she started out in kind of a bad place. And then, Twilight and her friends defeated him, right? And so after that, they start going through journeys. They start going through friendship lessons together. They overcome challenges, and they go through the Crystal Empire. They go through the holidays, and they do things together. And they start to do what? They start to form bonds and relationships. And she gets entered into like the overarching group of the main 6 and in the Mastermind, and everyone comes together. And what's cool is like she started at like ground zero, right? And if she was just trying to like grow on her own, it would take her so long to get to a point where she was like a nice and helpful person and contributing to the world. But what's cool is because she has the power of like this mastermind of the main 6, and they're constantly like helping her, standing behind her and pushing her forward to that next level and getting her to the highest point possible so she has the maximum impact in her life and the lives of others. All of a sudden, this growth curve, at the beginning it's tough, but it is geometrically faster. And she goes through lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson, and she gets like double the result in half the time, because that's like the power of the mastermind and the power of friendship, which is like so cool. And so Twilight, she sees how far Starlight has progressed and how, and she's going through like all these scrolls. She's got this huge bucket of scrolls. And it's like every single friendship lesson she's ever learned so far with her friends over the whole series of the show and her whole life, basically. And as she's going through like everything she knows, she realizes that she's taken Starlight through all of these lessons. And she's learned every single thing that Twilight has to teach her. And it's interesting because like, when I first got into stocks, right, it was this idea of like everything, but you're still like the master, right? So there's like this phase where you're accumulating knowledge, and then this phase where you're applying the knowledge, and then this phase where you have wisdom because you've been applying the knowledge and you know it works now, right? And so you start at the beginning researching, and then you start doing, and then you start refining into like your own strategies and your own secrets and your techniques and whatever. And so where Starlight is she's gone through this whole first stage of learning. And this is pretty much like exactly where Twilight was years and years and years ago, where she spent like her whole childhood learning about magic, but she never had any friends, right? And so Celestia, she made her come into this new zone where she was actually applying, and she was using her knowledge, but more importantly, she was getting out there and doing things with others. And so that's pretty much exactly where Starlight is. She just finished this first stage with Twilight where she's learning the foundation, she's learning the fundamentals, she's putting in the work, right? So that the rest of her life can be all based on this foundation. And she finishes like everything, right? It's like, you finish your degree or whatever, then you move on to the workplace to start working, and then you get really, really good at something, and you specialize in it. Sort of like that kind of idea. And it's just, and so because she's faster at stage 1, and now she's moving on to stage 2, Twilight, she's kind of freaking out, right? She doesn't really know what to do because she's never had a student before. She's never been a mentor before. And you can see like the insane power of this mentorship and the insane, like this relationship changes Starlight's life, like forever, right? Because she connected with somebody who is so far above her and where she wanted to be. And that other person, their perspective, fundamentally changed everything in her life. And so she's talking to Celestia because Celestia had to make this cutoff for Twilight, right? She had to cut Twilight off from stage 1 of learning and move her into stage 2 of application. And only by having that stage 2 of application was Twilight ever gets able to get to mastery. And then once she became a master, right, that's when you start teaching other people. And so she's talking to Celestia and she's trying to figure out, what did you do when you're moving from stage 1, learning, to stage 2, application? And Celestia, she says that like it was so difficult for her to make this cutoff with her, because with Twilight, right? Because Twilight was her student for so long, and they had such a close relationship, just like Twilight and Starlight, right? They're very, very close. But what she realized is that, Twilight, she had to come over to this side of the wall. She could not be here anymore. And even though she was further away, and even though they weren't really in the same place anymore, there's not like a direct day-to-day mentorship like it used to be, this connection still holds intact. That connection's still there, right? They still have that relationship. Twilight still knows Celestia. They're still very close. But Twilight's out. She's doing her own things, right? And as she, takes action and learns and does, she moves into her own space of mastery, right? So when she becomes an alicorn, Celestia, she says that she is now a student of Twilight's, right? Because she has come into the prolific zone, and she will have her own world, her own being, and her own strategies and secrets that Celestia could never have given her. She only can only teach, this first part, right? And then it's just application. And you can help with the application, you can participate in the application, but this is this idea of like why the student starts out slow, gets really, really good, and then exceeds the teacher, right? They pass the teacher. They pass the teacher because they've gotten through stage 2, application, and now they're moving into mastery. And so that's really like exactly what Twilight's doing right now. And so she asked Celestia like how she made this transition into stage 2, how she released her so that she could go and apply and be more and succeed more and fulfill her ultimate potential in life. And what Twilight realized as Celestia says that she's just got to let go of Starlight. She can't control Starlight. She has to let her go and be her own pony, do her own thing, and have her own successes in life. And so it's really, really difficult for her, right? Because she's been working with Starlight so closely, and she's worried, right? Like everyone would be worried when you make this cutoff. Like, what if they go and they do the worst thing ever, and they try to end the world, and they try to take over everything, and there's a huge black hole, like all this crap. Because it's tough, to make this cutoff after you've had such huge progress together. But the only way to get to that next stage of growth and that next stage of application and development is to release yourself from the mentor, to release the student and let the student go and do it on their own and have the most success possible. Like for me, like when I'm training people like with stock and investments, like this is the bulk of my work. And then like there's definitely communication, and as they start to apply and learn how to master the markets, like it's awesome because like they'll be like, hey, check out this stock, and I'm like, whoa, dude, that's a nice stock, dude, nice. And we go back and forth, right? And in the application phase is where you have the deepest connection, right? Because the people that you're teaching and the people that maybe mentor you or you mentor, you start to kind of be on the same level, right? And so when you're on the same level, after you already know all the same things, you're in this insane like common ground where, no matter what you do, you both know like at a foundational level that like you know your stuff, they know their stuff, and you're just working together now to apply it and have, get the greatest results possible in the market. And so that's like just the huge transformation that Starlight goes through so quickly, and it's so impressive. And it's all thanks to her ability to leverage. She goes out and she finds the top mentor, the top master, the top most successful person in her field. And instead of running away like Chrysalis did, she embraces it, and she says she was wrong, and she sticks her hand up and she says, I need help. And as soon as she does that, she has such a radically fast growth curve, and in like 2 seasons, 1 season, like she changes everything about herself, and sets herself on a life trajectory of total and complete happiness, success, fulfillment, and mastery of herself and the world around her and the friendships that ultimately form her entire basis of her existence, which is like so cool. And so that's really like awesome. Okay, all bottled up. So they kind of go a little bit like deep over like the dramatization on this one, which is totally cool, right? It's like this is this idea of like if you want to impact someone, you want to have a message, dramatize it, and it'll work a lot better. It'll like be more convincing, right? This idea made to stick of like physical equivalence of the intangible. And so that's exactly what they do here. So Starlight and Trixie, they're basically like spending the whole day together, and they're having fun, they're doing their things, and they're just kind of going around town, shopping, just like errands, stuff like that. But the problem is like Trixie is acting a little, she's not really thinking about Starlight, right? And so she just keeps doing a couple of things that kind of make her a little upset, that make Starlight upset. And instead of being transparent and saying, look, you're kind of pissing me off, like why are you doing all these, they're like slightly annoying things, like, lying or not doing something that you said you would do, something like that. instead of like saying, hey, what's up, and embracing the challenge, right? Taking this short-term pain of we're going to have to like actually deal with it, but in the long term, it's going to strengthen the relationship. That's what she should do, right? But in reality, what happens is she bottles it up inside, right? And so she keeps it on her inside. So for her, there's no pain, right? So she just gets to like be her own self, and she gets to continue growing and have her own day, and she's not worried about it. And she, no confrontation, right? Because confrontation sucks, especially if you have an argument. Like, arguments are bad, and like 100%, right? You don't really want to be forced to confront people, but you need to realize when confrontation is like necessary, especially in a situation where like you're living, like you have this really close relationship with someone and you're together like all the time, like forever, right? And so if they're always together, if they're always with one another, then to try to split them apart, or kind of more importantly, like this idea that they're not going to be going away. And so these nuances, the things that just slightly annoy Starlight, are just going to stack on top of each other over and over and over again. But instead of like dealing with it, she just lets it boil up. She doesn't confront her. And what she does is she like uses some magic or something. You kind of see like there's a huge red anger cloud coming out of her head, and she takes like all this anger, and she has like these physical jars, and she fills up these physical jars, these vials, with like red clouds, so like to kind of like physically express her anger. And she does this all day, over and over and over again, to the point where like they're walking around town, and she's got like all these jars of like anger, because she just won't confront her. And she won't confront Trixie, like it's gonna crush her in the long term, and it's gonna be like a huge explosion and a point of contention right here where everyone gets hurt, because it's so much easier, right, to just deal, with a little bit of pain, a little bit of pain, a little bit of pain. Just be transparent and say, look, this is a problem. Let's solve it right now before it grows and grows and grows and grows. Now you have this huge barrier of pain. It's going to freaking suck, right? It's this idea of, like when they measure how strong a hurricane is or how strong a tornado is. Like category 1, category 2, category 3, etc., right? It's not a linear curve, right? Category 1 is not here, 2, 3. No, it's exponential, right? And so if you deal with a category 1 and you can get rid of it at the beginning, it's very, very easy. But if you let it get up to a category 4, it's not 4 times as difficult. It's like 400 times more difficult, right? It's 10x, right? It's huge. And what she's doing is she's letting it grow and grow and grow. And this is the exact same way that like all relationships, like if you don't handle these problems at the beginning, it's not a linear growth of anger or hatred or whatever these negative emotions are. It's geometric, it's exponential. And so you must have the balls to take care of it early on, or else it's going to be so much worse if you let it boil up and boil over, which is what Starlight does, it's just a shame, because she doesn't understand this concept, and it's not her fault, but it just sucks. And so they're walking through town, and Trixie, she keeps doing some things that annoy her and are kind of mean and arrogant, and Starlight, she just like can't freaking control herself. She just keeps bottling up her anger, like it's just so stupid, right? This idea that think about it like, okay, this is like weird, but like this idea that if you're gonna like burp or something, right, and you have, say, like a small series of burps, right, and so you go, on your burp scale, you go burp, 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 versus not burping, and then it bottles up and 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 bottles up. Then you have this like, right, this huge burp. See, I used to struggle from this so often. I would like never express any of my emotions whatsoever, and it would crush so many relationships, because like it's so much easier to handle these small little incidents. But if you don't handle those small incidents and it bottles up to here, again, this is like 400 times more impactful than just small little incidents. And so these breakouts become huge arguments, right? Like massive fights. And so it can just destroy so much goodwill and so much, of this relationship. If you don't handle whatever comes up, the incident comes up, and be radically transparent with how you're feeling. And so that's what Trixie does, right? So she bottles it up, and they're walking through town, and there are some other ponies that come by, and these bottles, they like open up and they leak into the ponies. They leak into these guys, and these three like they manifest like all of Starlight's anger, all of her hatred, her discontent, like all the pressure that she's been building up, and the problems that she has with Trixie. They all manifest into them, and they sort of get like possessed a little bit, and then they go around running around and trying to attack Trixie, and like they're yelling at her and telling her all the things that Starlight should have told her about, like how she's upset and doesn't like what she's doing, but it's like all at the same time. And so there's this huge attack on her, and she doesn't know what's going on, and these guys basically like chase her up a tree, and so she's screaming and yelling for Starlight's help because they're like all attacking her and trying to get her, and like Starlight's like, why are they so angry, what are they doing, and then Starlight says, look, it's not them, it's me, it's my anger. And then she releases out and she lets it all out, and she tells her feelings, she tells her what's going on, she tells her how she feels. And then the anger all diffuses, right? And so these guys go away, and they're like, sorry for being possessed, didn't mean to be possessed. But kind of more importantly, Starlight realizes, or Trixie says, why didn't you tell me that? I didn't know that. You should have let me know. And so that's why it's so important to let them know, because so often people are doing crap like this, and they don't even know that it's hurting. They don't even realize. It sounds stupid, right? And you're like, oh, of course that's bad, right? But sometimes people, they just don't understand because they expect others to let them know what's going on. And people need feedback, right? So you want to be transparent. And you want to give feedback constantly whenever possible to stop this growth curve, right? Because if you just let someone know early on that what they're doing is like not acceptable or it's hurting you, like they'll stop, right? Like people want to work together and they want to strengthen their relationships. And so all you have to do is let them know and be transparent, and it's like 10,000 times easier to get stuff going, right? And so it never bubbles up, always works out towards the future, and you just have to be clear and concise with whatever it is you're doing. Woo! Awesome! All right, a flurry of emotions. Oh, this one's fun. Okay, so Cadence and Shining Armor, they come over to Twilight's castle with Flurry Heart, and Twilight, he's like super excited because she like gets to work with her niece and talk with it. She's like so fun. She's like, yay! And she's got like a really busy day because like she's princess, so like she's got like a lot of things to do, right? And these guys just kind of show up like unannounced, and I mean maybe you guys have had like family show up unannounced or something, but like they just like show up and they're like, hey Twilight, can you babysit Flurry Heart? And Flurry Heart is like so cute, and so Twilight's like, of course, I'd love to. And she like totally kind of like ignores what she needs to get done and basically says, look, this is better, right? We'll just get it done. I'll be with her and she'll have a great time, and it'll be like the most fun thing ever. So that's sort of the perspective she takes. She sort of overlooks her duties and which like she's got like this packed day. And Spike sees it. She's like, Twilight, you got this huge day. But what she do? She self-sacrifices her time so that she can have a relationship with her kid or her niece, right? Like, how cool is that? And that's like such a nice thing to do. And we're going to see how it works out in a minute. But like the important thing to realize is like she's doing her best and she wants to do what's right. But sometimes like people don't know what's right because you can only do what you know. And so at the beginning we're going to see how this works out. And so that's sort of the setup here, is this idea that she's trying to do the right thing. She's trying to be really cool. So she goes, these Cadence Shining Armor, they go to like an art museum with one of Shining Armor's friends, and they just go and have like a huge party. And then Twilight and Spike, they go over to start doing what needs to get done. And at the beginning, they play together with Flurry Heart like at home, and they give her some presents. They give her a doll, and just being like the nicest aunt ever, which is like super awesome. Just trying to do whatever she can do. And after a little bit of that, she's got to go and actually do some work because she has like legit meetings, right? And so she goes to these meetings and she's meeting with all these people, and what's cool is like, she's getting her stuff done, right? She's talking with who she needs to talk to, building that relationship, building that bond, and having that connection. And in the background, Spike's with her, and she's got like the baby in, a cart or whatever, in a stroller, right? And like so often, we'll think that like we can just go and do one thing and ignore someone else. When like that like this kid is only here to be with Twilight and Spike, and like she wants what? She wants a feeling of significance. She wants a feeling of importance. She wants attention, right? And so that's why Twilight gives her like this bear doll, because that doll, it makes her feel important. It makes her feel like she's significant. And so she's playing with this bear. As they go from place to place to place to place, and it gets to the point where like she's basically running in late or skipping appointments or not getting things done on time, because she's trying to do things with this kid and take her to her places, which is like super nice. But her challenge is like she's trying to mix together her work with her family, right? And it's like at the exact same time. And so it like crushes her ability to focus, right? Because she can't focus 100% on this meeting when she's got a kid behind her screaming and yelling and crying. And it's like a really, really tough situation to be in for her, because she's trying to do both at the same time. And so because of that, she's not able to fulfill like her peak potential for like either of these, which should be like way up here, because she's splitting her attention, splitting what she's doing. It's just kind of crushing her output and her productivity. And so they go from place to place to place, and they get to the school eventually with Cheerly, and they're talking to Cheerly, and the baby's having a great time with Twilight, because Twilight's giving her a ton of quality time, which is like awesome, right? And so there's this whiteboard in the school, and it's got tons of like math things on it that Cheerly wrote. And Cheerly's talking to Twilight about the meeting that they have, and they have to get books and stuff like that. And this kid, she comes out and she can fly, right? So she flies out of the basket, flies out of her stroller, and gets up to the board and sort of like erases all the stuff that's on the board. And she draws like this picture of herself with Twilight, with Spike, like this loving and engaging drawing, and showing like that she cares about them and that like they love each other, right? And then Twilight turns around and she sees this, and she like freaks out because like she was supposed to be in her cart and she was busy and she had to rush into her next meeting. And so like she instantly, very, very quickly scratches this out and erases everything on the board. And it's twofold, right? The first thing it does is it freaks out Flurry Heart and makes her so sad, because it just destroyed her work and her loving photo of all of them together. And it crushes her, right? Because she was focusing on this meeting, she was focusing on Shirley, she wasn't focusing on her. So she didn't realize that this like meant so much to her, and she just thought it was like some doodles or some scratch work or some drawings. And so it crushes their relationship in the short term, right? And then at the same time, she gets rid of like all the work that Shirley's done. So it's like this twofold negative impact on the world around her, which is just like, it's crazy, right? And so she has to go and she has to stand up, she has to stand forth, and she has to make this happen like much deeper at a better level. And so she runs away and she runs home and she finishes up all her stuff for the day. And as she's meeting with more and more people, it's the same deal over and over again. She's ignoring Flurry Heart and distancing herself from her because she's focusing on her work, right? Which is like what she's got to do. And so she gets home at the end of the day and she realizes that like she hasn't really been working on this bond, this connection whatsoever, and it's just like chiseled away and fading, right? And so because of that, she realizes that like she needs to do something new, something else, and be better, right? And so she steps back and she says she's going to dedicate, and says that she'll be only with her and do nothing else. And that's when she has the most powerful connection and impact possible on her and her life, because all of a sudden she realizes that she can be gifted and they can come together and work exclusively with one another, which is the closest connection that she can possibly have with her, which is so huge. And it all stems from like her ability to step back, get out of the situation, and focus on getting with her kid and just focusing on spending time with her niece. And so that's when like all of this stuff fades away, and all of the trouble she's having, they just disappear, right? because she realizes that like she can focus only on her and give 100% of her efforts on this kid. Like this is where she was like working at earlier, right? And she was having this mediocre connection. But when she focuses all in and she goes 100% on whatever she's doing, she gets all the way up here, right? And so it's like way, way, way more effective. And so this is like this idea that like if you're spending time with someone, you're trying to develop a relationship with someone or connect with someone or build a friendship or whatever, you want to make sure that you have like 100% dedicated time that goes towards that. And then you try to like kind of minimize the other work that you're doing because like you've got stuff to do, right? And you're a busy person. And so you want to focus trying like specific cutout time periods with like a daily journal or a planner. And then the instant that you have that, it becomes so much easier to just focus on going super, super hard and getting rid of, you know, this time where you would maybe be splitting your attention. Because when you split your attention or when you multitask or when you're trying to like sit on your phone while you do your work at the same time, like it's just bogus, right? And it destroys your productivity. I remember for such a long time, I was always trying to like watch YouTube videos and like listen to movies and watch TV while I did my homework like a long time ago, and it just never worked. It's total bogus, right? Because it splits your attention. And you just focus on one of the things, the other thing. You can't multitask. Like, don't try to multitask, especially with people, especially with relationships. You want to spend quality time with them, and that's when they start to develop this deep connection. She has the biggest progress with her relationship with her heart only when she focuses wholly on her and gives her a complete sense of attention, significance, and competence instead of focusing on work, right? So go all in, 100% on whatever you're doing. And don't try to like do many things at the same time. Just do it hard, get it done in a compressed period of time that's more effective and dense. And you're gonna have significantly deeper connections and relationships with others, which is like super cool. Awesome stuff.